Sid's concerned, Buck. Sid's
No,
concerned.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed at the negativity in Gibby's voice last night. Were you taken aback by that?
No. And let me tell you something. It wears on a manager.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at the team and you don't have many options and your hands are tied because of injuries and lack of performance, it wears on the manager. You're trying to figure out how you can do things, and people are criticizing him for using a platoon. Or what's he going to do? He's got to try to figure out a way to ignite the offense with less than 100% roster, and he just doesn't have the pieces right now. And he's got to get through it. He knows that. But when you sit there night after night and look at your team go away from their approach at the plate that worked so well for them in May, it becomes frustrating. And I talked to him about that the other day. I mean, having gone through it myself, I understand what he's going through. The manager is the guy that lays awake at night thinking about wins and losses. And, I don't think anybody wears it emotionally as much as the manager.
Some people say hindsight's 20/20. Now that you look back, is there anything that you can do?
Yeah, I think you can just keep encouraging the guys and encourage them to have good at bats, and let's scratch and claw. Let's try to go first to third. Let's do some things. I think we have seen, and I've noticed it with Bautista. He knows now that he doesn't have Edwin in the lineup. There's no Brett Laurie. He has chased some pitches we haven't seen him chase, and I think he's just feeling it. You can see it in his face as well. This is slipping away from him, and they had high expectations. They were riding a big wave, and then it came crashing down. They've lost 5 in a row for the first time this year. They're facing another tough left-hander. They're worse in the American League at hitting against left-handed pitching. And when you look at the averages, nobody has hit well against left-handed pitching except Bautista.
The platooning, Buck, before the game that Gibby said he was going to do, Gillespie and Lind, DH, Rasmus Mastriani in the outfield. A, were you surprised by that? B, what is he hoping to accomplish here?
Well, he's hoping to accomplish a good matchup to get a right-handed bat against a left-handed pitcher. Lind hasn't done anything against left-handers all year long. And, he appears to be overmatched. Francisco's overmatched against left-handed pitching. So Gibby's trying to do the best thing he can do. I believe there's probably even going to be an appearance of Bautista at third base against some of these left-handers, just trying to get as many bats in the lineup as he can. But, they don't have many options. They don't have many, up-and-coming rising stars coming out of the minor leagues in position players. So I think they have to scratch and claw. That's why we have Reimel. That's why we have Gillespie. Mastriani came back from the Twins, and, they just haven't been able to produce position players that are knocking on the door to become Major League everyday players.
Which is why many now are pushing for Alex Anthopoulos to go out and get a position player that can give them some help in the meantime. What makes you think that this team won't do what it did last year when it faced the same sort of injury woes, and that was free fall?
Yeah, and that's a concern, and that's why you hear John Gibbons and his personality right now is pretty desperate. I think he knows that this is a possibility. The one saving grace has been the consistency of the starting pitching, and it has been consistent. When you look at this team and you say, well, what are they doing lately? Well, they're not scoring any runs. And that is the big surprise. After scoring almost 5.5 runs a game in May, it fell off to under 4 in June, and it's slipped under 3 now in July. So, you don't have to look any further than the offense, and guys aren't getting on base in regular situation, and whatever you want to say about, it's good pitching. Well, they were wearing out good pitching early in the year. They swept the A's at home. They swept the Tigers in Detroit. They did everything right. So, this is a team that's capable of doing it. And I know they're missing some pieces right now, but as individuals, they're going to have to get back to their good approach to the plate and hit strikes and have quality at bats.
Buck Martinez here on Tim and Sid. What is the most glaring thing in your eyes, Buck?
Was enough. Showdown Joe.
From Toronto's hitting perspective, what are they not doing now as a group that they were doing 2 months ago?
Well, what they're not doing now is that they're not patient and not getting enough good pitches to hit. I think everybody feels like if I get a big hit now, if I hit a home run, and they weren't doing that in May when they played so well, and they weren't as good as the 20-4 record suggests. Everything was breaking right for them at that time, but I don't think they're as bad as they're playing right now either. But I think if they get back to getting good pitches, hitting the ball the other way, just trying to do what you're capable of doing. You can't become a 25 home run hitter all of a sudden just because your team needs you. You have to be what you are. And Reyes needs to get on base consistently. Melky continues to get multi-hit games, one right after another. He's been great all year long. And Bautista's done his thing. But now, without Encarnacion, somebody's going to have to step it up, whether it's Navarro or Lind or maybe even Nolan Rimo. And, unfortunately, Nolan has never had much success. His best year was 2009 in his rookie year when he hit 15 home runs and drove in 45. And he's had serious injuries since then. So you keep your fingers crossed that he can come up with a hit or two just to get them through this time until Laurie gets back, until Edwin gets back, until they start to get all of their pieces back in place. They've got to keep their head above water until these key players come back.
Sid and I yesterday were discussing Jose Reyes slash and what he's done as a Blue Jay. And then I watched yesterday, and I think he ended up with seeing 9 pitches in his 4 at-bats. He hasn't lived up to the billing that he came to Toronto with, has he?
No, he hasn't. And, last year, you remember the first couple of weeks of the season, he was terrific.
Yeah.
And then he had the ankle injury, and then he really settled down. But, he's got an on-base percentage of .313. You need more from your leadoff man. And I think he is pressing more than we have seen in the past because he feels like he's got to do something. He's got to make something happen. And anytime you do anything like that in any sport, I've got to get a hit. I got to make this shot. I got to make this putt. Anytime you put "I got to" in a sentence, you're going to be in trouble. And I think that's what's going on with the majority of these guys in this lineup now.
Can I ask a simple question? You can tell me if I'm being a simpleton. Is this lineup as currently constituted just not good enough, or have they run into 2 really good teams?
No, you know what? Right now, it's just not good enough. When you look at the position players and look at what they're hitting, and the fact that the Blue Jays are hitting .229 against left-handed pitching, they are running into left-handed pitching at a time when they don't have all their weapons and not everybody's clicking. And it's a perfect storm, and it's unfortunate because they're still over 500. They're still in second place. They're still in the hunt. They just need, as a group of players, to dig in their heels and say, we're not going to lose any more games, and we're going to turn this around before the All-Star break.
Buck, final question from me. Laurie comes back, Edwin comes back. Can they pull out of this?
I think so. The pitching has been better than we expected. Stroman and Hutchison have been consistent for 23-year-olds. You can't expect them to be your 1 and 2 starters, but they have done a good job. They have held up their end of the bargain. And I think, you have – the problem that the Blue Jays have right now is they have a lot of holes. They have a lot of things that they need to address. Second base is a concern or third base. But Laurie being out is a big void. He gives you so much defensively, and that we have seen that when you have guys that aren't used to playing with one another, they've not played well defensively on this trip. And now you've got Cole Gillespie in right field and Nolan Rimo in right field, Mooney at second. You've got a lot of different players out there. Bautista's playing first, and he might play third. And it's not a surprise that the defense hasn't been as good as it was early in the season. I'm
reading a lot about viable upgrades, about Martin Prado, about Aaron. Is there anyone out there that you've read in those suggestions, or even in AAA with Buffalo right now, that fits the bill?
Well, there may be players that would help, like a Prado or maybe an Aaron Hill or somebody like that. But we don't know. I don't know for sure just how flexible the Blue Jays are with money. Can they pick up money? I know one thing, they don't have a whole lot of prospects that you can afford to give away. I would be very concerned if they had to give away Stroman, Hutchison, Sanchez, or Derek Norris, Daniel Norris, excuse me. But yeah. I just don't think that they're in a position right now where they can go out and bring somebody in that's going to have a big difference, because the people we continue to see are people that we've gotten off the waiver wires. And that's a tough way to fix things in the middle of the season.
Isn't it? Well, we'll be watching. It's going to be very intriguing. They got some tough arms to face before the All-Star break approaches. Buck, thanks a lot for joining us on Game Day.
You guys have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, Buck.
There is Buck Martinez from Anaheim.